Or a T-shirt I gave up, but that's okay.
A T-shirt and a pair of panties. That's all it takes,
Hey,
really.
what can I say?
Oh, my gosh, we're live. Hey, everybody. How are you? Yeah, we can see you, too. Let's see what we got here. Oh, wow, that's right in front of my face, too. And there's Dr. Dave. There I am. Hi. I am, I think, having a hot flash. So,
Oh, we
Dave,
can fix that.
We can. What are we talking about today, Dave?
Well, today I'm going to catch the folks up on DBO, about what we discussed on WFLA last week, okay, which was about the difference between these rates of infection and what the infectivity is, what the prevalence is of an illness. And the difference is whether you're going to go crazy or not, or whether or not you're going to take the data in turn. That's assuming you can actually get it. So what I did was I went ahead and got a look at what our positivity rate, not just in my office, because that's a fairly small 50 people a day kind of a deal. What percentage of the people coming through the door are positive? Well, 50 is not very many. So the other business that I run is a commercial lab up in Jacksonville, and we do between 1,000 and 1,500 per day.
Oh, wow.
And we knock them out. And it runs from Jacksonville down to Orlando, areas west, and as east as the ocean, let's say. And we found that the positivity rate is close to 6%, and it's remained fairly constant.
Ooh.
So what does this mean? It means that when you're seeing these rates and reports and whatnot going up, you need to take it with a heavy dose actually, of salt. And what does it mean? It means that the data may not tell you what you need to know, which is, just as they said in the movie Boys from Brazil, is it safe? Is it safe? Is it safe? And the answer is yes, it is safe.
I thought that was the Marathon Man.
Was it Marathon Man? Did I get that wrong?
Isn't it the dentist guy?
I thought that was Boys from
Hoffman's
Brazil.
Mouth?
Yeah.
Marathon Man.
Was it Marathon Man?
Yeah.
Well, what the heck?
Von
So forget the pop
Max
culture
von
reference.
Sydow?
Yeah, forget it.
It's Marathon Man.
I got it wrong. Darn, that's the second time in my life.
Hey, it's documented now.
Yeah, there you are. So what does it mean, though? Okay, what it means is that the rate isn't as high as you might think. So, we have a record number of people coming through, when in fact the positivity rate, which you only know by looking at the total number of tests divided by the numbers that are in any event. So what happens here is that even those statistics lie, and here's how. They lie because when somebody tests positive, you have to test them 2, 3, sometimes 4 more times before they can go back to work, which means they get reported more than once.
Wait, it's 4 people now.
Right,
It's only
precisely.
One?
Okay, that is the fun part. So it gets even more interesting. So the plot will thicken after we get going at 3:05. So that's what we're going to talk about. That and what other lessons we learned from COVID. Okay, and these are big lessons. They're not small lessons like you got to wear your mouth, or you got to brush your teeth, or you got to wash your hands. Those are pretty big lessons. Okay, but the real lessons are the real lesson and singularity is we're learning what our profound level of ignorance is with regards to respiratory viral illnesses. Okay? And you're going to go, well, gee, I thought the doctor knew a lot. And the answer is the doctors do know a lot, but they don't know nearly as much as they thought they knew. And so because you've got 300,000 doctors focusing on one virus, you're going to start picking up all kinds of stuff very, very quickly. So this one stinking little virus has got more attention in the course of 6 months than influenza has in the past 75 or 80 years.
Don't say it.
All right? So what do we know? And when did we know it? Okay, is really what this is going to be about. And that'll be the first 15 minutes of the show. Is going to be some stuff that you may not have considered. And the beauty in this is I get to talk, and I won't be I won't be interrupted much. So then I'll be able to complete my thoughts.
It's fair.
In spite of the fact that I blew the pop culture reference, which I won't ever do again. In fact, that's not the first time I've blown that one, because I think you corrected me once before.
Second time.
That's the second time the same mistake. Well, at least I'm consistent. Thank you. I just got whacked by my wife.
You're going to make a mistake, and you made it twice.
Yeah, well, that's...
Now you'll never get it
I'm
right.
consistent. Hey,
it's Tom Terry. This is where
How long, guys?
first for breaking news, weather, and traffic. WDBO.
Oh, wait, no, it isn't.
Nobody home.
Brought to you by...
No, we're in the weather. Okay. All right, fair enough. So you guys know what's going on. Let me... let's see, you've got nobody on the phones yet, so that's a good thing.
That's a good sign.
Yeah, it actually is a good sign.
Yeah, and so, anyway, so I'm moving signals. Okay, so I'm going to be going from DBO, which is 96.5, which recently turned into a music station, and they moved the news, okay, to 107.3, which nobody can hear. So, rather than speaking to an audience that cannot listen in, I decided to jump ship and move to a different station.
Traffic still.
Traffic still. In that case, I will tell you which one it is. It's 94.1. Now, this is WFLA. And it's it's a good station. The signal's strong. We're also on the AM side with those guys as well, although nobody really listens to the AM side. And we'll be streaming live on iHeart. So, if you're driving in your car, that streaming may actually be a better idea. But I listen to it on the FM side. So let's see. What kind of signal do we have now? Are they coming in?
Oh yeah, well, we got a bunch of people watching you.
Hot damn.
And I'm just waiting for because we're waiting on this. You said about 30 seconds, so
okay, we are good.
I'm going to cut my mic because I know how to shut up.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, we got an eye roll and a cough to boot, so we're all good. I need a little volume, if you can. Thanks.
It's not a medical opinion and does not consent to doctor-patient relationship.
Happy Sunday, Central Florida, and welcome into another edition of Stages of Life right here on WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580. That's right, we are live on this Sunday, and you can join us right now, 844-580-WDBO. What's the ache? What's the ailment? We're here to help you out. Well, actually, Dr. David Klein is here to help you out. I'm just here to enjoy the conversation. 844-580-WDBO is the number. Go ahead and give us a call right now. Those phone lines are open. 844-580-WDBO. Of course, you can also leave us a brief open mic using our WDBO app. There's the open mic feature in there. You click that and just leave a brief voicemail describing your problem for Dr. Klein. And in the meantime, though, the best way to get in touch with us, those phone lines, 844-580-WDBO. And my name's Chris Crawford. Joining me here now is Dr. David Klein. And Doc, actually interesting stuff happening this weekend. You tested our very own Joe Kelly earlier this week for the coronavirus, and he talked about it earlier this week on Orlando's Morning News, and that was pretty exciting stuff happening there.
Well, it's interesting. We're testing about 1,500 people a day. In the Orlando office, 50 or 60. We've done more, but what's really, really interesting about the coronavirus and the statistics that we're getting, and this is a little something that I'm going to start pushing out, which is going to be a 1-minute COVID update, and nobody really cares to hear about how many hospitalizations and how many surgeries and how many intensive care units, how many people on the blower, ventilator to you, and how many people expired, because the statistics that they're hearing, and we all know it by now, lie. What's it all about? Well, the kid died in a motorcycle crash, but he was tested to be positive, therefore he is a COVID death. It sucks that somebody should die at a young age in a motorcycle. I'm selling mine. So why would I contribute to the chaos? And I'll tell you, the reason is that I love contributing to chaos, but more so, I have an idea. And the idea is this: people don't necessarily need to know how many people tested positive if you don't know the total number of tests. Okay? And you're not going to know the total number of tests because, as I explained on a different radio interview, that the real problem here is entirely time related. So if you have 1,000 tests that you have to perform in your lab, and we'll do that. We essentially cram 1,000 per tray into our PCR machine, and they flow through in a 2-hour period. So it's roughly 500, between 300 and 500 tests per hour. And when it pops out, it'll tell you who's positive and it'll tell you who's negative. All you have time to do is to report the positives to the state, because it can take up to 5 or 6 minutes per person to report to the state on their website. So if you take 1,000 tests, that's negative and positive, that's the total run, it's going to take you 250 hours per day that you run. So you have to employ 4 people, to work 80 hours a day, giving them the breaks and all the other DOL stuff that has to happen in order to report it for the state, because they're not able to take things in a timely manner. So if you send it to them on paper, which is what I do in my office in Longwood, because I don't want my people spending 2 or 3 or 4 hours per day doing nothing but state reporting, we send them on paper and let the state employees, for whom we pay our taxes, to sit and key it in. And as a result of this, their data runs 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks late. And then you'll see, as they ramp up testing, you're looking at data that may be so stale as to be useless. More so, nobody can afford to sit and type in the negatives, because it really doesn't get us anything. We're not getting paid to do that. And we're not, in fact, we wouldn't be able to afford to do the test if we had to report all the negatives that way. So what I've been looking at, just as a simple country doctor, okay, is what is the positivity rate in the test. And this is not something you're going to find by looking at the newspaper. You're not going to listen or hear this in the morning report. You're not going to see it on the president's report, because they don't have visibility into the data the same way that I do, at least not yet. Maybe they'll learn to do this. But you look at the total number of tests and the total positives, and that gives you a much more meaningful rate. And it's about 6.2%. Sometimes it may be as high as 6.4%. Sometimes it's as low as 4.8%. But that seems to be fairly constant and consistent for about the last 6 weeks. That is an important statistic. What does that mean? It means 1 person in 20 that you're going to run into may in fact have the disease. It doesn't mean they're infectious. It doesn't mean you're going to get it. It just simply means that 1 person in 20 may have or have had the infection. Does that sound like everybody's dying under bridges the way it happened in the Black Plague? And the answer is no. It's not even close to being that. So, WDBO, we're going to bring you the COVID report. Today's tests, 1,500 people from Central Florida revealed a positivity rate of X, Y, or Z. That is valuable information, and I think people would be a little bit more settled. How many kids? You can parse this thing down by locality. You can parse it down by gender if you chose to. The fact of the matter is you don't really need to. This is really what it's all about. And what I wanted to talk about today, okay, this is something that I believe is important, and that's what have we really learned from the COVID experience? Okay, what is our experience with this? Our experience as a nation, okay, has been that we have a crisis which we didn't really quite figure out. It took 6 or 8 weeks to understand what it was. And then as things start to change, how did our response live up or change with the situation? That's what's panning out right now. Now, what I will tell you about the medical community and COVID, okay, is that you have 300,000 or 400,000 healthcare professionals of all stripes, all looking at this problem from their own interesting and unique experience. You can imagine 400,000 unique experiences. It really is about what it is. But the one thing I will tell you is that if you just etch-a-sketch the whole bunch of it and looked at it this way, it'll become more clear. And that's that no single respiratory virus has ever gotten this much attention over this short a period of time by this many people. So it's little wonder you're going to see some disagreement, let's say, because when you have a group of 5 doctors, you're going to get 10 different opinions and a fist fight. It happens every time. They call them medical staff meetings. That is some fun. You don't have to go to WWF. You could go live on the medical staff meetings and you'll get every bit the thrill. Doctors hitting each other with chairs. It does happen, but not often. It's usually hit them with something far sharper and more poignant. So what are we looking at? What we're looking at is is more research, more focus in the past 3 months than for influenza over the past 80 years. So I want you to imagine for a second that this was that we switch viruses from coronavirus to influenza A or parainfluenza, or it could be adenovirus, rotavirus. It doesn't even really make any difference. Norovirus, if you really want to get weird. And we start focusing on populations that do not have the disease. You're going to find enormous numbers of people that are going to be asymptomatic. They're going to have the virus particles, but they don't get sick. Think about it. Okay, so during an average flu season, lots of people get sick, but the minority of them actually get tested. Why? Because it costs $100 to get that test. Plus, if you're going to the doc in the box, it's another $800 just to sign in, right? So $1,000 swab or $100 swab if you're at the family doc, but you don't want to pay for it because your insurance won't either. So you go home ignorant and you're happier for it. The fact that somebody is actually paying for these tests is the reason why they're being done in the droves. So, the president was actually quite correct when he said, well, if we want to reduce the rate, let's stop testing. He just didn't understand really the best way to phrase it, which is, let's treat this the same way that we treat flu. By the way, it's the same way they treat it in Germany, Sweden, Italy, France, every place else. If you don't have sniffles, cough, headache, and fever, you don't get tested. You don't qualify. Wouldn't you know it? The number of positives would plummet. So that was what was happening early on in this. You'd line up down at Orange County the convention center, and you'd drive up there expecting to get your free test, right? Okay, the ones they never did report back, the free test. Okay, but if you didn't have a fever, they threw you out. They told you that you were not qualified. Goodbye, you're gone. Okay, you spent 3.5 hours in line. There were a lot of aggravated people. Eventually, they had to start testing people just so they wouldn't have a riot there over that. You know, there were lots of riots here recently over a whole lot less than standing in line for 3.5 or 4 hours. So what have we learned? Okay, if we tested influenza the same way that we test COVID, they'd never open the schools, the daycare, the colleges, or anything else. We would be all economically destitute. We would look more like Somalia, okay, than we do right now. So what do I think? I think that cool heads have to prevail here. The long and short of it is they've got to open the schools up, or we're going to end up with another generation of kids who can't read, write, or do arithmetic. It's bad enough right now. Okay, hire children, hire people, hire young adults that don't know how to punctuate. They don't know how to spell. They don't know how to add. They certainly don't know how to divide or round up or round down. Okay, these are kind of skills that you really need in medicine, nursing, and the other health support areas. And yet we're having a hard time finding people speaking in complete sentences, answering questions with a proper verb and noun. These are things that you have to learn in school, and you're not going to do it very well sitting in front of a computer. You know, I was a good student, really, really good student, but if I had to do this at home, I would have ended up doing something very, very different from what I'm doing now. I can promise you. It's the minority of people, minority of students that are actually going to have the singularity of purpose and focus to sit in front of a computer and do distance learning.
2 minutes, Doc.
So what do I think? I think we need to look really, really hard, okay, at what we've got going on. And, you know, as it goes, look at the statistics and understand about how statistics work. They lie, and they lie. So you have to dig into the granularity. You have to look at what's being tested, how it's being tested, and then understand that when you test the same people 4 times, that's not 4 different people. A positive test, these people have to test negative twice before they can go back to work. So guess what? They may actually represent 3 positives instead of 1. And you know something? That is a hard thing to figure out statistically or any other way. So God bless us, because we need it. So let's move on with the show, or those shameless commercials we have to do.
You came locked and loaded today. Ooh, you were ready. I like
yes,
it.
Sir.
844-580-WDBO. We are going to go hit the 3 big things you need to know, but then we're heading to your phone calls. We got 2 on the line right now, but 7 lines open. 844-580-WDBO. 844-580-WDBO. You're listening to Stages of Life on 107.3 FM and AM 580.
La la la. Hi, everybody. We're now in one of those wonderful breaks, and we've got a few questions.
Seen a new report by ABC.
Let's give it to them. Linda said, do you think it's safe to walk around the mall for over 65 with a mask?
I think if you protect yourself, you're going to be in good shape. And I'm not so sure that you need a mask so much, but I would probably go there armed. So yes, I think it's quite safe. It's not going to be that big a deal. The people that are at risk, it's not an age-driven thing, but there are 2 principal factors that I've identified in looking at tens of thousands of these people now. And it's 1, are you taking PPIs? Those are proton pump inhibitors. These are medications that you take as an antacid. Okay. If you are, you're at increased risk. And we can get into that as to why a little bit later. The second one is if you have hypertension. Okay, those 2 things are also comorbidities with obesity as well as diabetes and the rest. But it's actually those 2 factors when it gets distilled down, because you can have diabetes and not be taking the PPIs and your risk doesn't go up. So do I think it's safe? And the answer is yes. Enjoy your walk. Go contribute to the economy, for God's sake.
My question is, though, are the malls actually open?
Well, it doesn't even matter if you can walk around.
Yeah, I mean, you can just walk around, but I don't think a lot of the stores are open.
Well, she was just asking if you can walk around.
Here's one. What do you think is the correct blood pressure for a 70-year-old man?
And coincidentally, it's the same blood pressure for a 20-year-old man, which would be 120 to 130 over 70 to 80. And what do you need for a normal blood pressure? What is a blood pressure, and what does it do? It has to be high enough to pump blood from your heart to the top of your brain while you're standing. Okay, that's really what it boils down to. And so If you have obstructions between the heart and the top of the brain, that's when the blood pressure has to go up. So those obstructions could be atherosclerotic lesions. So, when somebody, it's a little high when it goes over 138. That's kind of my break point to start bringing it downward. But even still, if it's not high enough to hit the top of the head, then I'll take it as high as necessary to keep people from having a stroke until we can reduce the blood pressure after reducing the stenotic lesions. If that made sense, God bless you.
Do we know the percentage of positive results with 0 symptoms, and are we sure we're actually testing for the right things?
And that's what we do actually at Stages is we have 4 different things we test for. We test the PCR, we test antigen, antibody, IgM, and IgG. So I've been looking at all 4 of these things. And so it all depends on who we, as the definition might be. Are we looking for the right things? I know I am. I can't speak for anybody else. The percentage of people that are positive that go on to get sick is about 5%. The total number of people that actually die from this is less than 1%. So it might be 0.8% in that range. It's the smallest percentage. 95% of people that carry this disease are asymptomatic. Therein lies the problem. And I find it fascinating that it may be the same with influenza. Think about that. Okay, if we learn anything from COVID, it's going to be how do we handle flu, which has killed far more people than this did over the course of our human history. Influenza has been a much bigger scourge. So do we know what it is? And I think we do know what the percentage is. It's 95% asymptomatic, 5% symptomatic, and of those, only the minority gets sick at all. Some they feel like they've had a sore throat for a day or two, and that's it.
Okay. Linda wants to know if you're still offering the COVID test at your office. Has a deputy friend who is interested. Now, are you talking about the serology, the antibodies, or the?
We do in my office. Well, actually, we do all 4. Okay, so we do the finger prick, which is not a bad thing to do. It'll tell you whether you've been exposed and whether you have any level of immunity. We can draw it through the blood, and we also do the PCR, but we send that to the lab in Jacksonville. We can do any of these things.
Details coming up.
So, yes, we can do any.
This hour was paid for by the host and does not reflect the opinion of WDBO.
Hey, welcome back into Stages of Life right here on WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, your radio virtual waiting room, if you will. And the number, if you want to join the waiting room, 844-580-WDBO, 844-580-WDBO. We got a few calls on the line here, so let's go to Grace in Winter Garden. She's going to kick things off for us. Grace, welcome on the show. What is your question for Dr. David Klein?
Glycine supplement. And it says on there, consult your physician before taking. Is that so dangerous? And what good is glycine?
Glycine is the most common of all amino acids. Okay, so glycine is ubiquitous. You're taking glycine now at every time you take a bite of anything that's got any protein in it at all. So if you've made it this far, you're going to make it just fine with glycine. Why does it say take under the advice of a physician? That's called CYA. The abbreviations stand for you got to cover yourself. Okay, so what does it mean and what does glycine do? Glycine, very, very inexpensive amino acid. Again, it's ubiquitous. It's all over the place, but it's unique in that it's a sedative. So I give it to folks with attention deficit disorder. I give it to folks with bipolar disorder because it modulates a receptor called the NMDA or N-dimethyl aspartate receptor. So it works really well with what are called major sedatives. If you have bipolar, schizophrenia, and the rest, you'll know what I'm talking about. But glycine is also useful to help people sleep. The dosage is between 1,000 and 2,000 milligrams at bedtime. If you have ADD or OCD, I have people take it a gram twice a day. With bipolar, I use the same, but I'll add something called glutamic acid, or actually, it's the salt, the glutamic acid. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, so it's safe for me to take. I'm 88 years old, and I just wasn't sure.
Yes, ma'am. It'll be perfectly safe. And again, if you need it to rest, you take 2 grams. That might be 2 full capsules at bedtime, and it's not going to bother you. And if you paid more than $20, you paid too much. Glycine is very, very inexpensive. All right, what do we have next up?
We're going to keep rolling right along, and we're going to go to Dave. He's calling in from Beverly Hills. Is that a Florida Beverly Hills or California Beverly Hills?
Who knows?
Uh-huh.
All right. It doesn't really matter.
The call screener, we went back and forth with. He had a good time with that.
Yeah, well, if you're from the California, if you're from the California Beverly Hills, I know you're not. I would speak more slowly than I'm going to speak. So go ahead. What you got there?
Oh, that's it. You are so done.
I love
have to do you in, Doc. Hey, Doc? What happened to Rob, by the way?
Rob is watching us on our Facebook Live right now. He's still recovering. He had himself a medical issue, and as you age over about the age of 40, and Rob is over 40, it takes longer to heal. So he is at home resting, and he's comfortable. I've got to tell you, he got out of the hospital, got out of the rehabilitation hospital, and now he's home mending. So, yeah, but he's listening right now, so he would appreciate the shout-out. So thank you on Rob's behalf. We do miss him, no question.
And I know that you guys are coaching. You always had him in the examination room. He should be on the top of his game.
Well, everybody slips in the shower once in a while. So
don't worry, not a hair out of place though. Still, because we know our Rob Newton, not a hair out of place.
He looks good, okay. The problem is that he's not so steady on his feet. So that's a real problem, is getting to and from his house to the studio. So what's on your mind?
Hey, okay, listen, you're my favorite doc, so I can tell you everything. I know. The thing is, I'm taking, this is what, 73. I can split the house. I'm unbelievably strong. I'm taking something, Siberian ginseng, 1,000 milligrams, super green powder, wheatgrass, kale, moringa, spirulina, organic chlorella, spirulina 50/50, and I'm taking a 5 longevity mushroom blend.
Okay, is your skin turning green yet?
I am actually like a pale yellow, going to green. I'll give you an update on the color in next week.
Okay, well, as we get into the fall, you'll start turning a little orange too. So what's up? Lots of chlorophyll in what he's eating.
My legs are more cramped than ever. What am I missing in my diet?
All right, it's usually
what can I add to this?
It's usually a mineral deficiency. When you're doing the herbals the way you're doing them, you're not really picking up the minerals as you should be. So you'll get lots of the let's say the phytonutrients, marvelous antioxidants. You're doing well with that. You're looking at some of the lesser of the micronutrients that you need, but you're not hitting the big ones. So what I would do would be to start very, very simply by looking at magnesium, manganese, calcium, selenium, zinc. Okay, look at the product Magic Minerals. Okay, so go on stagesoflifevitamins.com, type in Magic under where that little magnifying glass is, the search bar, and it'll pop up. Look at what's in it. That's what I want you to start with. So you take that on a daily, not the whole bottle on a daily basis, but you would take the 4 capsules, which is that would be the daily dosage per day. You let your body get used to it, and then you start adding more magnesium to it. Now, once upon a time, we used to tell people, the real problem is potassium. That's rare. It's actually very, very rare outside the hospital that you'll see somebody with muscle cramps and a potassium deficiency. In the hospital, different matter. So you are not, by definition, in the hospital. Therefore, the most likely possibility is going to be a magnesium deficiency. Absorbing the magnesium is your challenge. So you're going to go, well, but I'm taking 200 milligrams or 2,000 milligrams, whatever dosage you're taking. You need to know that the body absorbs about 1%. Okay, very, very little actually gets absorbed. And if you have a problem with absorption, that's how you get into trouble with this. So you may need more magnesium or a different moiety than you're taking in order for those muscle cramps to go away. So look at Magic Minerals, start with that, and then chelated magnesium to follow. Give that a try. Get back with me. I'll tune it up from there, bro.
There you have it. Good stuff, Doc. 844-580-WDBO. Go ahead and give us a call. Phone lines are open. 844-580-WDBO. You are listening to Stages of Life right here on WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 5.
All right, we're back here on Facebook Live, as well as Periscope and a million other things. So let's just go away. All right, what do we got here? Feel Better Rob. I'd love Dr. Klein. We got a lot of people watching, but nobody has any questions. Get out.
That's okay. Well, I'll answer your first question. Okay, do masks work? And the answer is yes, they do. Okay, what do? They remind you not to get close. That's probably the biggest thing. They remind you about things like washing your hands. So COVID, which is what our major issue is right now, is a virus. We all kind of know that by now. What we don't tend to know as a general rule is the fact that it's principally in our gastrointestinal tract. All right, what does that mean? It means that if you're going to give it to somebody in your household, it's going to be because you didn't wash your hands well after you hit the commode. Or you handled somebody's, let's say, their dishes, their plates, their napkins, their food. Because it will pass along food, person to food, and then food to person a whole lot easier than it will by nasal droplet. So were that not the case, we wouldn't see husband and wife teams where the husband's sick and the wife is ill or is not ill, and vice versa. We're seeing lots of that. One person tests negative, the other one tests positive. But you're going to see clusters of people that eat together that are all ending up positive. So what is so strange about a restaurant? Why are all these restaurant workers getting sick? Because they all eat in the back. One of the benefits of getting paid $1 an hour to be a waiter or waitress is the fact that you get to eat there, right? And so, well, you're not getting a window seat, okay? You are not going to get the principal seating. So you're going to be sitting in the back eating, and it's just not as clean. So unless you're very, very careful about your dietary cleanliness, you are at risk for being COVID roadkill. That's what it's all about. So if you had to learn anything else today, that would be it. Okay, and that would be to keep your hands out of other people's mouths, keep your hands out of other people's food, and certainly off their face towel. Okay, yeah, husband, wife, red and blue. Okay, yeah, I don't care about your proclivities. You know, I don't care which of you gets the red and which one gets the blue. It doesn't make any difference. But make sure that you don't wipe your face in somebody else's hand towel, and that is kind of all it takes to get sick. So be very, very careful about the people around you, because if you follow these sorts of guidelines, you're going to do very well indeed. But husband and wives, no guarantee that they transfer across. I've only had one husband and wife team that was both positive. That was it. The rest of them just didn't happen. That's actually should be a study I'll do. So that would be number one. Number two, what are the sorts of things you have to be careful for with regards to activity? Take something called lactoferrin-containing colostrum, because it cuts your risk to about zero.
One here for you. Do you think it's safer to get a haircut at a salon or at my haircutter's house?
Boy, that's an interesting question. And I would say the salon. Okay, why? Because it's probably cleaner than her house. Okay, truly. I mean, if you had to clean one or the other, which would you clean? You'd clean the place that has to be cleaned because you have guests coming all the time. So I would be at the salon in a heartbeat. So I went and got my hair cut, both of them. Okay, during this COVID environment, and I went to the salon. Okay, now she would have one person come in.
Oh yeah,
you have to sit outside. That's the beauty in Stages of Life Medical Institute, is that we have 32 exam rooms and 114 parking spaces, okay, and one doctor, okay. So we were putting people all over this building, and it didn't matter. You could go in there and not run into anybody. It was fantastic. But the smaller salons, they can't do that. So this is the way they did things. So what do I think? I would go to the salon. That's exactly what I did do. And
it's a safer bet.
It is a much safer bet.
Let's see. Candace said her brother has been tested 9 times now.
All positive?
I don't know. She didn't say that.
9 times. Well, it'd be interesting. If you're working at a nursing home, they'll test you every week. But that's okay. But we've been testing these people that are ship's captains and these folks, the maritime workers.
Right.
They have to have 2 negatives. So they may test positive 3 or 4 times because you're doing it every other day. Okay, until they're allowed to go back to work, because it's big bucks to keep those ships in dock.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not a big shock. But so I count for 8 people. Congratulations, you're the ones that throw it all off. But the state has no way of being able to parse you out to know that you are 8 negatives or 8 positives. One way or the other, that one person threw it off tremendously. Imagine that. Okay,
wow.
Just if a lot of people do that.
Rebecca says she's got 2 friends, a husband and wife. They both tested positive. Yeah, but did they have it, or are they just testing positive for it?
Right. Well, that's the other thing. Okay, is that if you test positive for the antibody, it doesn't mean you actually got sick, does it? All right. So you have to know what the test was. So if you're PCR positive, that's the molecular genetics, that's a pretty good bet that you are positive. If you're antigen positive, that's really good demonstration that you're positive. But you test for the antibodies, it don't mean anything. It means that you have the antibodies. That's all. So if I gave you a flu shot, okay, and we checked your antibodies, they'd go up. It doesn't mean you got the flu. If I gave you a shot for mumps and your antibodies went up, it doesn't mean you got the mumps. It's the same thing. So it depends upon what the test is as to whether or not it makes any sense at all. So I've been negative across the board. I'm not so sure that that's a good thing.
I have another question. We won't have time for it.
All right.
Not right now. We'll answer that question for you a little bit later, Nancy. But it's just time for us to get the weather. Oh, boy. Oh, it's Jen.
Yeah, ask Nancy, what does SMA stand for? Because it's not an abbreviation I'm familiar with. Yeah, that's Stanton Military Academy. Yeah, SMA. So.
Our Ask the Experts weekend continues on WDBO.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah. Yeah, who's your daddy?
It's a singer.
Uh-huh.
Here we go.
Welcome back to Stages of Life right here on WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580. We are live on this Sunday, and you're more than welcome to join us at 844-580-WDBO, 844-580-WDBO. If you want a double experience, both the auditory and visual, you can head over to facebook.com/Stages of Life Medical Institute, and you can see Doc's bright, smiling, happy face right there as he gives you all this medical advice as well. It's a little double for what you're getting, which is free. So it's a great deal that we're offering for you there.
Well, the shocker.
Facebook.com.
Yeah, the shocker is I'm better looking than I sound on the radio.
I would agree. I would agree with that. So, I mean, it's interesting because it allows people to also engage with you during the commercial breaks. That's the reason I really bring it up, because
okay.
Some people may not want to listen to those. So you can jump on the Facebook Live and listen to you there.
Well, listen to our commercials.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which is just more of your commercial. So,
there you go.
Perfect. Actually, Doc, we're going to head to your old neck of the woods right now and
okay.
go to Maryland, because Chris is calling in from Maryland. Not me, just Maryland Chris. Yeah. What's going on, Chris?
We love you and we love WDBO, and I'm going to make this fast. It was nice hearing about Rob, and also thank you to Marie for sending me information about allopurinol for gout.
Yes.
And my question is for you, having regards to Congressman Lewis passing this week from pancreatic cancer. Is there anything that you could prescribe that would be useful nutraceutically to protect the pancreas and keep it in good health?
Yeah, actually, there are a couple things that you can do, and they're both very inexpensive, very easy. And, the pancreas is nobody's friend, okay? So when the pancreas gets sick, you've had it, okay? It didn't, it's just one of those sorts of things that Alex Trebek is kind of lamenting right now that, I'll take bad cancers for 500, Alex. All right, so what is it about the pancreas? N-acetylcysteine, NAC, okay, 500 milligrams 4 times a day will thin pancreatic secretions to allow it to drain easily. To that, you add guaifenesin, which is Mucinex, 400 milligrams 4 times a day. And so what will happen is the pancreas drains, and if it drains, it won't get inflamed. The interesting thing about NAC is it's also helpful for hepatitis. It'll settle down the liver functions, and if you have pancreatitis, it will settle it down. Very, very useful things. Third would be turmeric. Okay, turmeric is interesting stuff. Curcumin, the curcuminoids are they're anti-inflammatory, tumor necrotic factor alpha antagonists, and they reduce your risk of cancer, all cancers, to include pancreas. So those 3 things would be what I would do to assist, to help, to facilitate pancreatic health. But more so, it'll help every other gland in your body, to include the parotids, the prostate. Okay, 2 very, very important things. The gallbladder, which really isn't a gland, but it functions in some ways, with regards to the way it dumps out bile. It thins biliary secretions. So I take all 3 of those things to keep healthy, and not just for the pancreas, but for the liver and the eyes. Okay, same thing. It's very, very interesting, but that's a brilliant question, Chris. I hope I helped you out. So,
yes, you did, Doctor. Thank you so much.
Be well. Talk to you then. Okay, what do we got next?
Good stuff there. We're gonna go back local. We're gonna go to Kathy. She's calling in from right here in Orlando. Kathy, what's your question for Dr. David Klein?
Well, I don't have a brilliant question, but here it is.
I didn't say it wasn't a brilliant question. I just said local.
Oh, come on, Kathy. I'm sure it is. Show us your stuff. What you got?
No, it's not. But I'm wondering, can COVID-19 cause a person to have a heart attack if they are 40 or under and don't have an underlying condition?
Okay, the answer is yes. Okay, but here's the real issue. Is ignorance of a condition doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. And therein lies the problem. So let's say that somebody has high blood pressure and they don't know it. Okay, they still have high blood pressure in spite of the fact that they don't know it. So what is it about blood pressure issues? So you have something called the renin-angiotensin system. Okay, and so there's a series of medications that affect this area. It's called the ACE receptors, angiotensin converting enzyme, and that is where the COVID virus attacks. So where do you find these receptors? You find them in the bloodstream, you find them in the lung, you find them in the gut, the GI tract. Most of them are in the GI tract. So can somebody end up with a vasculitis from COVID? And the answer is yes. If you end up with a vasculitis, can that cause a heart attack? The answer is yes. The fact that they don't know that they have a dysfunctional or disproportionate, or let's just say an imbalance of the ACE receptors, just because you don't know you have it doesn't mean you can't that you don't have it. So ignorance may not be bliss. So Kathy, I hope that didn't talk around your question, because the answer is simply yes, it can.
Okay.
All righty.
Okay. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Kathy. You know what?
Yeah.
That actually
that was a good question. Yeah. No, that was. There's a simplicity to that question. Okay, that begged a complicated answer. Okay, and the nature of the question is such that, gee, I know somebody who got sick with this thing, and Kathy, I expect that that's probably the reason why you called, and I'm sorry for your situation there, whatever that situation turned out to be. But the answer is yes. So
I imagine that there's a lot of people out there right now who may have some sort of underlying condition that they're maybe ignoring, thinking it's not a big deal, but it is, or people who just don't even realize that there's something going on there. There is.
Every day we have people come in the office that they come in for X, Y, and Z, and they come out with an entirely different issue,
right, exactly,
because they don't know. The real value in a physician is to find stuff before it kills you. Okay, nobody really wants to be told they have a condition that has no treatment. So you go out there looking for those things that you can in fact fix. So what else we got there?
We're going to go to Tavares, and we're going to talk with Robert. Robert, welcome on the show. What's your question for Dr. Klein?
Yes, thanks for having me. My question is, Dr. Klein, I need to know your input about stem cells for your shoulders, knee, or back.
Okay. It's an interesting question with, again, it's a simple sounding question with a very interesting answer. So stem cell therapy, okay, is in fact a treatment looking for an indication. Right now, I believe the only one that's actually demonstrated unequivocal benefit is stem cell for hair restoration, believe it or not. So doing stem cell for bald people such as myself. When it comes to knees, shoulders, and other joints, some people seem to get a response from it, some do not. Is it covered by most insurances? I don't think it's covered by any insurances, which tells you something also, that they'll cover a knee replacement or shoulder replacement at $50,000 or $100,000, but they won't cover the stem cell because it doesn't really have a predictable response. So were I to open up another practice and call it, the medical service for most expensive treatments, that would be one of our offerings. It's one of those things that's very, very expensive, but doesn't give you a predictable or, in fact, sometimes even a measurable response, unless you're bald, in which case it does seem to help. So if you talk to the dermatologists that do it, it does seem to work there. So good luck.
Right.
Yeah. So I usually tell people not to do it.
Yeah. All right. Interesting information. All right, let's keep going right along. We're going to go to Castleberry. Nancy is called, or I'm sorry, we're going to go to Denise in Winter Garden. Denise, welcome on the show. What's your question for Dr. Klein?
Denise.
Hi, Dr. Klein.
Hey, how are you doing, Denise?
Yeah, I'm here.
I love it. You got me sleeping there.
A while ago, you mentioned something about grapefruit seed for nail fungus.
Yes, ma'am.
And I just had 2 toenails removed because of that. And the podiatrist just wants me to put on antibiotic salve, and I'm not sure that's going to kill it.
Okay, well, that used to be let's just say that used to be a technique to get information from people. Okay, so Yeah, removing the toenails is something you have to do because it's like removing a foreign body. But depends on upon what antibiotic he's putting on and why. He just did a surgery on an area that's not notorious for being all that clean. So putting a regular topical antibiotic would be a good idea to keep from getting a surgical infection. But if you go ahead and you do a nail removal, okay, with revision complete, let's say excision of the nail bed, the nail's not going to grow back. So did he remove the nail and the nail bed or just the nail itself? Do you know?
As far as I know, it's just the nail.
Okay.
And what he told me to get was triple antibiotic.
Okay, so he told you that the nail would grow back, correct?
Yes, in about 6 months.
Okay, it'll take longer. Okay, it'll take a year. Okay, so yeah, he's giving you just a topical. Okay. He's taking it. It'll take a year. You watch. Okay, it's given to you to keep it from getting a surgical infection, but to keep the fungus from coming back, you can use topical grapefruit seed extract. We call it GSE because it takes up fewer syllables and you get more of it on the radio that way. So grapefruit seed extract, the brand that I use is Citricidal. I think they make the best product out there. And what you do is you dilute it 50-50 with water and you apply it with a Q-tip. And you do that a couple times a day. And what that will do is it'll knock down the amount of fungus that's in the skin. Now, you're never going to eliminate it all. It doesn't work. This stuff is all over your body. It's just, you might as well try to avoid mosquitoes here in Florida, okay? It's just not going to happen. So grapefruit seed extract liquid. And again, you can mix it up in one of those Dollar General little plastic containers. You dump the whole ounce or so that comes in the bottles that we have, and then mix it 50-50 with water, and then dip a Q-tip in, put it on the toenail bed, and then you do that morning, do that evening, and it should keep it cut down. That's what I have people do before they have the nails removed in an effort to try to prevent nail having to be removed. But if the infection is throughout the entire nail, sometimes the fastest way to do it is the way they did it, which is to remove the nail itself. But when they go ahead and they remove the nail bed, which sometimes you do for chronic ingrown toenails, okay, then it doesn't even really matter because the skin's going to grow over it and that'll be the end of it. So Denise, get the grapefruit seed extract, cut it 50-50 with water and apply it twice a day. You're now going to know more than the podiatrist does about the treatment of fungus in the nails. Okay, what do we got?
Good. We're going to actually hit the three big things you need to know, but we've got Nancy coming up, we got Richard, and we've got someone else calling in right now too. So we're going to hit the lightning round. You're listening to Stages of Life on WDBO 107.3 FM and AM.
That plug in the Facebook show this time?
Cool.
Pretty
I love it.
Exciting.
Yeah, I'm going to get hate mail from podiatrists now. and that was totally uncalled for. No, they do a great job. I mean, what a miserable job, just messing with people's feet all day long for an entire career. You do that for 40 years and see what your outlook on life is. You're looking down all the time. A retired podiatrist, I'm shocked that they don't have kyphoscoliosis from looking down so much.
All right, I got a bunch of them. Okay, we got an answer. The SAM is the superior mesenteric.
Oh, SMA.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, all right. So what was the question?
Do you know about it?
Yeah, no, it's atherosclerosis of the superior mesenteric artery. And what it does, it will cause something akin to gastrointestinal angina. So you'll go ahead and you'll eat. You'll eat a heavy meal or certain meals, and then you'll develop cramps. It feels like irritable bowel, but it's actually atherosclerosis of the gut, and that's something that needs to be taken care of. So Nancy, if you've got that, I'd be shocked. Okay, 1, you're the wrong gender. 2, you don't smoke as near as I can remember. Okay, because that's the sort of thing you see in elderly smokers. And so when that goes bad, you end up with bowel infarct. So when you come in, Nancy, I want you to tell me why you asked that question. Okay. Yeah, you just made me concerned about you.
Okay, let's move on to Anna Marie. Can you fix hormonal imbalance in perimenopausal women?
Okay. How many do you want me to do before noon? The answer is yes. This is what I do all day long. I probably see as many post and perimenstrual menopausal women as the average hairdresser. I mean, you want to talk about somebody who has to deal with people all day long without being able to fix it. The difference is that's my job, and I don't do hair. So how do we go about doing this? We generally get blood work. We look at estrogen, typically estradiol levels, progesterone, testosterone levels, and then bring them back to a level that you would have had when you were 38 to 45. And usually the symptoms start to go away. And that is the secret to it. But you also have to pay attention to cortisol, DHEA, insulin, and thyroid. So it's a juggling act that involves about 8 different balls. And if you can do that, everybody's happy. And that's precisely what my job
Doc
is.
is always happy when you juggle his balls.
Ooh,
Is that not what I got out of that?
Well, no, I can't disagree with that, but that could be taken a couple different ways.
I'm just going to say 8, though.
Hey,
pushing it.
I am a man.
It's a good thing you're the only doctor at your office, since you do not have enough wall space for anyone else's credentials.
I've been criticized for that. I did take the biggest wall in the place and filled it with stuff.
Yes,
and I
you
still
did.
have an office in the back with more, and most of them are real. So.
Let's see. Thank you. I do not have it. My granddaughter was just diagnosed with it. She's 18, very thin. I'll see you Tuesday.
Okay. Yeah, we're going to talk about that because 18-year-old with SMA is unusual, but Whipple's disease is not in an 18-year-old.
Oh, by the way, if you're watching this video, could you like the page and tick on the little bell so that you get notified whenever the doc goes live on Facebook? We know it's all new to you. So
more so is that when you ring, if you hit that thing, you're going to pick up all of my faux pas.
Oh yes,
the many.
You'll get it all, every bit of it. But bottom line is, please like the page, guys. For those of you that are not liking it, I may not be seeing your comments.
Presence, yeah.
So, and you might be asking a very important question, one of those great questions.
Well, it's surprising. We've had some really good ones today, I got to tell you. Yeah.
So, anyway, that's where we're at that. Let's see. We do have a question I really do hope that we get to here on the air, and that is about, because colostrum.
Yes. Okay.
And there was a bad report that came out a couple of months ago saying colostrum was useless. We talked about it, shot it down.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, Nancy's got some long-term effects. So we're going to talk about that coming up next on
Cool.
the radio. Yeah, it looks like
Well,
it.
you don't stay on anything indefinitely. That's the first thing. So we'll get to her. Ask him if he can pop that up next.
Yeah, can we do that one next? Nancy and Castleberry about the colostrum, since it's a big cell back at the base. Chris.
Earth to Chris.
Chris.
He's there. He may be in the head. So.
Whatever.
We'll hit him on the intercom in the head.
And again, kids, just so that you know, you are actually listening to a live broadcast on the radio, as well as a broadcast out of the studios here, which are the Stages of Life studios in Longwood. And that's what's going on. So we take a radio break and we try to answer your questions on the internet. And sometimes we just dance for a minute.
Well, yeah, we do entertain.
It is
So
entertaining.
you never really know.
You just don't know. There's hand holding and
Lots
a lot of stuff
hand-holding.
behind the scenes.
Yeah, but see, Tess will not go on the camera. She won't do it, and she certainly won't go on with the mic. Oh, here we go.
Wait.
She's
Here it comes.
this is my wife right here. Yeah.
Nice rack
behind
lady.
But that's my wife, Tess.
She was trying to.
Yeah. So when you see see her in public now, you'll know kind of what she looks like.
She's taming the beast, or that is the doc, though.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. She is the beast tamer.
Here we go.
Hey, welcome back to Stages of Life on 107.3 FM and AM 580. We are live on this Sunday, and it is time for the lightning round. So we are going to start out with Nancy in Castleberry. Nancy in Castleberry on high request right now for you to join the show. What is your question?
Yes, doctor. Last Saturday you spoke about the benefits of colostrum.
Yes, ma'am.
My husband and I, over 70, one had the virus, one no symptoms. Is this something we should take, and should we do it long term, or is it a short term thing?
Generally speaking, let me put it this way. It's useful for different things. When I have people that have ulcerative colitis, or if they have Crohn's disease, irritable bowel, they stay on it. Okay, why? Because it tightens up something called, oddly enough, the tight junction of the GI tract. So if you have leaky bowel, it corrects that. So those individuals need to stay on it. But for corona, this is a 6 to 12 week illness, and you're gonna stop shedding it from the nasal tract fairly early, maybe 3 to 5 days. But it takes a long time to stop shedding it from the GI tract, and therein lies the problem. Folks that have quote unquote gotten over it are still shedding the virus through their gut. So you may be on it for a couple months. It's not that long, 2 or 3 months, and then you should be okay with it. The worst thing it's going to do for you is help you rest at night. It reduces your risk of influenza. So I take it every flu season. So this happens to be flu season. So I've been taking it the whole time. And again, nobody in my office has gotten sick with this thing. No coronavirus and no flu. And I don't know of any of our patients that have actually gotten sick. So what do I think? I'd stick with it until this crisis is over. But I do believe, though, that if you're both positive, we probably should get a quantitative antibody study for you to find out what your level of immunity is. Because people ask me, well, can I get this again? If you have IgG in any quantity, odds are you will not. But yeah, we have what's called a semi-quantitative IgG analysis. So we can do that for you in the office if you choose. Next question. What do we got?
Next up to Richard calling in from Orlando. Richard, welcome on the show. What is your question for Doc?
Hey, Doc, I'm one of your patients, and I'd probably normally run this by my primary, but I don't know if I get in to see him, and I still wanted your opinion.
Okay.
I had, working outside, I had scraped right below my knee, a portion of my shin, just scraped off a 1/4 inch by about 1.5 inches worth of skin. Pretty superficial.
Yeah.
I bled a lot. I cleaned it immediately, peroxide, stuff like that, but it is scabbed very heavily. It's been a week. I keep doing the peroxide thing, and it fizzes like crazy, which I thought had something that shows you there's something going on. And I've been putting on Neosporin and stuff like that, but it's still pretty hot. It's inflamed a 1/4 inch either side. And my question was, would I, if I saw you or somebody else, be prescribed a topical antibiotic? Because my immune system's good, and I take your colostrum. I didn't want to take an internal for this.
Yeah, the question.
Is there something other than over-the-counter topical?
Yeah, Richard, do you have any let's say, do you have any problems like diabetes offhand?
No.
Okay, so you're healthy? Nothing else going on with you?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Okay.
I have thyroid,
Thyroid.
Hypothyroidism.
That's as long as that's under control, it's not a big deal. Yeah, so I would be using the topical antibiotic. They call it a triple antibiotic. It's bacitracin, polymyxin, neosporin. And you can get this without a prescription. Years ago, it was a prescription item, and you smear that stuff on with a tongue depressor. Okay, you go ahead and you put that on 2 or 3 times a day, and then leave it loosely wrapped. Okay, so in other words, put a 4x4 gauze over there with some paper tape, but allow it to breathe. Don't get it wet. If that red area around the edge gets any worse, okay, I want to see in the office. Okay, because that's when I'm going to give you an antibiotic by mouth. So what you don't want to do is to wait for things to start getting out of hand, especially if it's a strep infection. And that's kind of what it's sounding like. But if it's strep, polymyxin, neosporin, bacitracin should take care of it. So if that thing doesn't get better, let's say by tomorrow, or certainly by the day after that, make an appointment, let me look at you and get this thing fixed. Because I really don't want you getting pieces of you removed as a result of an infection like this. What else we got?
Let's go to news. We're going to close things out in New Smyrna and talk with Jennifer. Jennifer, you are the closeout hitter on the show. What's your question for Dr. David Klein?
Hey, Doc, I got a friend of mine, 18-year-old son. He just got diagnosed with allergies galore, mostly seeds, nuts, grains. They want to do a skin prick test on him. I don't see the logic in that, and where do you go with this?
I may not see the logic with it either. Okay, there are different classes of immunoglobulins. The one that typically causes allergies of the skin is IgE. Okay, so if he's allergic to poison ivy, you're going to pick it up in a skin prick, but not necessarily if he ate the poison ivy leaves. You can be allergic to eating strawberries, but if you rub them on your skin, it may not bother you at all. And it has to do with the different classes of immunoglobulins. So if they did blood work and they found that he had IgG and IgM, okay, in the blood, or IgG and IgE in the blood, that's good enough. Okay, doing the skin prick is basically another way of generating another $600 to $800. So would I necessarily do it? The answer is no, unless you're unclear or unless you think there's more to his allergies. So the skin pricks are very, very useful for respiratory allergens also. So if you're looking at GI, you did it right with the IV stuff, the blood work. But if you're looking for respiratory, sometimes the skin is better. So doing a complete job, yeah, you would do the skin prick. But odds are I think you've identified what the issue is.
Jennifer, does that answer everything for you?
Yeah, except for
1 minute, guys, 1 minute.
Everything has those things in it. How do you avoid those things? Or is there something you can take or do to help your system not be allergic?
What he's allergic to are more than likely something called lectins, Lectin, that's present in the nuts and seeds. Very, very common. So if you pull them away from these things, and then you can slowly introduce them later, but not in bulk, let's say. So in other words, well, now that I'm no longer allergic to cashews, I'm going to eat a bag of cashews. Very frequently, if you take little bits of it, the body will not react. So you have to be careful with it. Now, peanuts, you want to avoid, period, exclamation point. This is Dr. David Klein, Stages of Life Medical Institute. It's 1917 Booth Circle. That's in Longwood, Florida. 679-3337. Pardon me, I caught me off balance there with the music. The bump music got me. And stagesoflifevitamins.com.
stagesoflifevitamins.com, suffernomore.com, facebook.com.
Thanks, Doc. Have a good one.
Thanks. You have a good
Life
one.
Medical Institute.
That's what happens when you get caught flat-footed. Okay.
All right, let me let them
It's
go.
like, holy cow.
We got a couple of questions
I was
here.
about ready to
that,
give away my cell phone number.
Yeah, I know. I saw that.
Well, they did that for me one week.
Freaking saw that. They did give it away one week. You're right.
Yeah, it's like my funding is...
Okay, let's see.
It's crazy.
I got a quick one here. We had a question. This gentleman said that he took... he lost like a whole bunch of weight on... There it is, 70 pounds. Actually, it was a lady. Lou Ann, she said 70 pounds lost on keto.
Okay.
Now I'm really hot in the afternoon after I eat. The labs are great. Could it be my crazy thyroid?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, you betcha. Yeah, well, what happens is this. Okay, when you lose weight, okay, especially if you're a female, okay, the thyroid tends to ratchet down because it thinks that you're, let's say it's famine going on, so you have to reduce the temperature in your thermostat. So it will do it. When your temperature drops, you'll feel hot. Kind of cool, actually. So if you have a fever, you feel a chill. It's the way the body fools itself. So yeah, you're feeling hot because your temperature's too cool. You're ending up with a reactive hypothyroidism, and generally speaking, it means you need to increase your thyroid intake. So if you're taking Natrethroid, Westhroid, something like that, you have to increase the dosage. If you're taking Synthroid, oddly enough, increasing it may make it worse because it's T4, and the problem is actually the creation of reverse T3 from T4. So you increase the T3 component, and that usually takes care of it. But
Okay.
yes, that does make sense.
Barbara, I'm going to ask you to like the page as well as Linda. Like our page. Daniel, too.
Please.
Barbara said she's a patient, and she thanks you for her information, but she does want to know if colostrum should be taken to prevent COVID.
Yeah, that's why I take it. Yeah, and it's exactly what it does. So the way that I have people take it, we have about 8,000 doing it right now. So you take 2 of them at bedtime. Real simple, real easy, and 1 bottle will last you 2 months. So, it's that 60 capsules a month or bottles of 120, and I think it's $34. So for $17 a month, so I've got my whole family on it. I got my extended family on it, and I got my office family on it. Okay. And so I put my money where my mouth is.
Which leads to Marion's question: can colostrum be purchased over the counter? Is it
of course,
or is it prescription?
It's neither. It's available over the counter. Does not require a prescription. Finding it can be tricky because the colostrum, the better colostrum, you have to know where it came from and you have to know how it's produced. The stuff that you're looking for is made in New Zealand. Now, why New Zealand? Because it's about the only place that makes it illegal to take away the lactoferrins. It's the lactoferrins that you're looking for. Otherwise, what happens is you're buying the pea pod without the pea in it. So you want lactoferrin-containing colostrum. And so we have it. Okay, we're not the only ones in the world that have it. Okay, so you could buy it at stagesoflifevitamins.com, and you're going to be sure you're getting the right stuff. You can go on my webpage and look at it and try to get it yourself if you choose to. I didn't make it so that you couldn't figure out how to do this. It's not expensive. So, but you don't want just generic colostrum, especially if it's made in this country, because they take the lactoferrins out and then sell it to you to increase your growth hormone levels. So they can actually make more money with the lactoferrins than they can with the colostrum with it. That's interesting. Well, you need to increase your growth hormone level. Wouldn't you know it? So then they charge you $100 a month for something that they swiped out of the colostrum. And that's kind of an interesting thing, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, you see the commercials on the TV. Okay, increase your growth hormone. We'll send you the first bottle free, and after that, it's $100 a bottle, and you can never stop it from coming.
Yeah, right.
So the lactoferrin-containing colostrum. So if you go on Stages of Life Vitamins, type in COLOSTRUM. In fact, COLOS is enough.
Gets it.
It gets it. And then you'll the stuff is inexpensive because that doesn't need to be expensive.
Right. So there you go, folks. Thanks for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed everything. Dr. Dave is going to be, in just 2 weeks, he's going to be joining the lineup at WFLA Orlando. And that's pretty cool, I think. Plus
different logo.
Different logo, better logo.
Yeah.
And also, he'll be with us on Thursday night of this week at 7 o'clock. I don't know what we're talking about, but I'm sure it'll be great.
We'll decide 10 minutes before we do it.
Usually.
And then it'll sound like we practiced it all week.
We're good. We're pros.
Yes.
Say goodnight, everybody.